Hi. What I'd like to do now is try to manipulate the data set so that I can remove a certain thing. I want to remove the COVID lockdown from this data. So we've got as a timeline of household income, sorry, timeline of house prices. We have a scatter plot of annual change onto of house prices and GDP, and I've calculated the correlation coefficient using the quick measures. And if we look at the data, we can clearly see that something occurred in 2020 when the economy had a significant contraction, and that was the COVID lockdown. So what I want to do is remove these last two rows from the analysis, so that I can see, is there a change in the correlation coefficient, and if I take out this outlier here, how does that affect the scatter graph? Now, if it was simply changing over time, I have something called a filter. So I could, if I go into View and I go into Filters, I could easily look at this particular visualization, and where it says year, say, look, advanced filtering, anything that is equal to, less than or equal to 2020 by filter, and that would remove the COVID 2 rows for COVID and give me a different pattern. However, and I'm going to clear that filter. However, for these ones, I've got no filter to remove the last two. I'd have to go in and work that out manually, or try and say, right, I want to use the bottom, and I've got a lot of recalculations to do there. And on this particular filter for the correlation coefficient, I have nothing to work with. Yeah. So I can't use filtering on all three of them to give me the outcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new data table. And I'm going to, in this new data table, I'm going to remove these last 2 years or last 2 rows, and then I can repeat the process by which I created the visualizations. So how do I do that? Well, I need to be in Home, and I need to go into the Power Query Editor. And when you open the Power Query Editor up, a new box appears. It can look a little bit intimidating. It's very busy. It's got lots of horrible looking formulas. But basically, what I'm going to do is I want to copy this to a new query. This is equivalent of having, say, a new table or worksheet. And I want to rename it so that there's a difference between all data and pre-COVID data. And in the pre-COVID one, I want to remove the last 2 rows, row 11 and 12. So how do I do that? So I'll go on to it's currently called sheet 1, which isn't very intuitive. So let's just right click on that and rename it. And I'm going to call it all data. And then I'm going to click on all data again, and I'm going to select duplicate. And then I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to rename this data pre-COVID. So in this section, I'm in Home, I'm going to click on Reduce Rows, and it says Remove Rows. I'm going to select Remove Rows. It then asks me what to want to remove, top, bottom, alternate. I'm going to remove bottoms rows. It says how many would I like to remove. I'm going to remove 2, and that takes the 2 bottom rows out. Now, if I'd made a mistake, as you see on the right-hand side, there's a little, this is applied steps. This gives you the history of everything you've done. So I would simply click on the cross, and then it removes that from the process, so the data reappears. But I want to remove these. So let's go to Reduce Rows again, remove rows, bottom 2 rows. And then when I'm all happy, I'm ready to close and apply. So I'll click Close and Apply. I can see straight away back into Power BI, it's reloading the data into the new sheet or data table called data pre-COVID. I can reassure myself it's all worked fine. Go to the data view, that's for all data. Go to the data pre-COVID sheet, and I can see I stop at 2019. So that's fabulous. So now I could create a new page. I could go to my scatter diagram. And just to help the seeing what's going on, I'm just going to go and put the data format on so that we can see it clearly. I can then go to my data pre-COVID. I can take the annual house price. I can take the annual GDP. I know I have my little single dot because it's summed, so I just go into remove the summation. I'm going to put my little trend line on. And then I have a new scatter chart there. And if I wanted to, I could. I can now see clearly here that the scatter, I've removed this outlier here of minus 9.8% on the income because I'm not going negative. Yeah, I'm stopping here on the axis. So that's great there. So I'll repeat the exercise for the correlation. I'll go to my quick measure. I'll go to calculation. I go to correlation coefficient. I'd go to add. Some I'm going to do. So I'm going to go for year. I'm going to go for annual change in GDP. I'm going to go for price changes. Click on add. Yep, shows me the code that's gone through. Wonderful. Close that all down. And now if I drag the new one, that's 0.71. And if I take the old one, that's 0.41. So that's how I can remove rows, or I can manipulate the data in Power BI using the Power Query in a really simple way of removing rows to remove a certain effect from the data. So now I can see I have if I put these around the right way, I have a pre-COVID and I have one with COVID in, and I can see the strength of the relationship is much stronger between annual change of income, GDP, and house prices if I remove the COVID years from the analysis.